Hi, and welcome to Mrs. Pam Reads, where we are continuing in the Magic Circle by Katherine Neville. In our last video, there was lots of information about Adolf Hitler, and I reminded you that this is a historical fiction. So if you have an interest, go check out those facts, because I'm not sure they're facts. They might be. I haven't checked it out yet. But so we talked about how Hitler was trying to get the perfect power based on runes and location and celestial this and that. And so that's kind of where we're still there. So we'll see how it proceeds. When Wolfgang finished the story, so I guess we're not still there. We were headed up the long road that passed through the rolling hills and high open meadow toward the white and gold walled monastery of Melt at the top, overlooking the broad, fertile Danube River valley. We pulled onto a broad gravel apron. Wolfgang switched off the engine and turned to me. There is one more H who was tied to the power of the Hegel rune, one that might well be the most significant, he told me. During the period of young Adolf Hitler, okay, so we're not done with that story yet, lived a struggling artist in Vienna. The famous father of Germanic paganism, Guido von List, was living there too. List had had a mystical experience in the year 1902 while in his 50s. Recovering from cataract surgery, he went blind for 11 months. During this time, he believed he had rediscovered, through occult insight, the long-lost meanings, origins, and powers of the runes. He also claimed he'd received information about an elite order of priests of Wotan existing in Germany in ancient times, and he soon established a modern-day order of that priesthood. In the 1st century, the historian Tacitus had divided the Germans into 3 tribes. List maintained that these tribes had really been castes, like order, social order, caste system. Anyway, that the outer circle, the Ingavons, were farmers, and the next, the Istavons, were military. But the inner circle, the Hermiones, were sacred priest kings who guarded the secret of the runes. So profound did many regard this concept that by 1908, the List Society of Preservation for Germanic Heritage was created, numbering among its members some of the wealthiest, most prominent people in the German-speaking world. Its fervent following was almost like a new religion. Later, it grew into a moving force in the zealous nationalistic movement that led to the First World War. In 1911, List formed a select inner circle within the society based on the pagan priesthood. To lend the name a more German-sounding ring, he called it the Armenenschaft. Only the members of this new priesthood itself were fully aware that the Hegel rune was the secret, unspoken power contained within its name. Wolfgang paused and looked at me as if expecting some reply. You mean the name Hermione? I said carefully. I had, of course, observed the resemblance of this turn of the century Teutonic Armenschaft priesthood to the name of an ancestress in my own family, Hermione. I also saw with an uneasy twinge that until now the former Dutch orphan and boat person had remained a sketchy figure who seemed to have done little with her reputedly haunting beauty, except marry twice, inherit money, and die young. An interesting name, don't you think? He said, smiling strangely. In myth, she was the daughter of Helen of Troy, abandoned at age 9, with Helen eloped to Paris and the Trojan War began. In the Greek, the word herm means pillar. The real meaning of the name of those ancient tribes at the absolute geographical center of Germany, and of course, the name of the runic priesthood too, the pillars. So you see, if Hermione means pillar queen, it's the woman around whom everything evolves, the one who herself must be the axis. And that's actually the end of that chapter, but we're only 6 minutes in, so we're going to go a little further. The next section is titled The Mothers. Oh boy, more names I can't say. Mephistopheles, a great mystery I'll now unfold. There are goddesses enthroned in solitude sublime, beyond place, beyond time. Only to think of them, my blood runs cold. They are the mothers. Faust. The mothers, the mothers. It has a wonderful sound. How do I reach them? Mephistopheles. There's no path to an unreachable, no map to the unmappable. There are no locks, no bolts, no barriers there. Can you envision emptiness everywhere? Here, take this key to sniff out the true path from all the others. Follow it down. It will take you to the mothers. And that was written by Johann Wolfgang Goethe, and the title is Faust. And then we have another one. Who dares to love misery and embrace the form of death, to dance in destruction's dance? To him, the mother comes. Viva Canada. All right. My grandmother, Pandora, might have set things in motion by scattering the contents of that box among members of my family. But it now looked like she wasn't the only contender in this game. It was hammered home to me that there were two mothers, Pandora and Hermione, who'd spawned all those other recipients of my grandmother's bequest. Like the nails hammered into the Stockeneisen, I felt this new axis. Hermione, the pillar queen, might help tap into something too. When it came right down to it, what did I really know about Hermione Bent, the mother of Zoe, Ernest, and Lafcadio? It mattered little whether any or all the stories I'd heard of her were true, whether, as Laf claimed, she'd been a poor Dutch orphan and later a rich South African widow, or, as Wolfgang said, she was the namesake of a secret Wotanist rune Aryan priesthood, the Armannenschaft. So far, everything about her, from Alpha to Omega, was Greek to me. But of course, that was the one clue. I'd fished from all the opinions, myths, and maybe out and out fictions I've been fed these past few days. The very clue Hitler himself might have been hunting for here at the monastery of Melk. If Hermione connoted axis in Greek, and if there really was some geographical connection to mythology, as everyone seemed to think, then the important Hermione, the Hermione I should be looking for, wasn't likely to be found in a phone book, a family album, or a history of early Germanic tribes. It had to be found on a map. When Wolfgang and I came into the library's entrance hall, I saw it at once. On the far wall, beneath a slab of glass, was a hand-tinted antique map of Europe, written in medieval Germanic script. With Wolfgang, I went over and stood before it. Had it been here 75 years ago when the young Adolf Hitler walked through these doors? The typed legend on the wall said, in German, French, and English, that it was from the 9th century, the time of Charlemagne, and depicted important religious sites throughout Europe, churches, shrines, and sanctuaries established since the beginning of the Christian era. Since a Greek name like Hermione seemed to point to a Greek location, it took only a quick scan to find it. Hermione was a seaport on the southeast coast of the Peloponnese. On this map, a Christian church was marked there with a tiny cross and its 1st century date. Interestingly, it was surrounded by 4 other marked sites that were identified with the sun god Apollo. So what had clearly been an important pagan site may have been converted, as Dacian Basarides described yesterday, from worship of a prior aeon's god to those of a new one. If his idea was right, holy sites of the age of Aries would now be replaced with sites of the new age that had just been dawning 2,000 years ago. Pisces, fisher of men, and his mother, Virgo, the celestial virgin. If Hermione represented an axis on the world grid even before Christianity, it should be connected with earlier pagan sites bearing symbols like Aries the ram and Taurus the bull. Hermione was situated facing Crete, where an earlier culture, the Minoan, coexistent with Egypt, had flourished. I traced a line from Hermione to Crete, where Zeus, father of the gods, was nursed on Mount Ida by the she-goat Amalthea, a goat whose image Zeus later fondly set among the stars as another constellation, Capricorn. But I knew there was another god whose worship in the form of a bull had been equally influential on Crete. The very god Uncle Laugh assured me I'd know when to call on in time of need, Dionysus. Given all this, when I traced the Crete-Hermione axis towards the northwest as Wolfgang looked on, I found it more than interesting that it ran smack into the heart of the most powerful religious site of ancient times, a site shared by 2 great gods, Apollo in the summer and Dionysus during the long, dark winter months until the sun made its return from the land of the dead. That site, of course, was Delphi. Here was the Python-inspired prophetess, the Pythian, the these are not familiar words for me, the Delphic oracle. For thousands of years, these successful oracle mouthpieces of Apollo had foretold events and prescribed actions the Greeks had adhered to religiously. No ancient writer doubted that the Delphic oracle could see the interconnected web of time comprising past, present, and future. So a site like Hermione, connecting places as important as Delphi and Cretan Ida, may well have been the axis. Let's see how far we got going here. Well, I think we're going to stop there because I've got 2 maps I can show you in the next video. Okay, the axis. Lots of tough words in there. I hope you don't mind me kind of struggling over unfamiliar names of people and gods and places and constellations and all that fun stuff. Anyway, I hope you are enjoying the story. It's interesting, for sure. Hope you have a wonderful day, and I'll see you next time.